Yes, people. So we're going to break down social anxiety in today's episode. So if you're going into social situations, or the thought of going into social situations sends you down a spiral of panic and anxiety, let's say before or in the middle or after a social situation, you're over analyzing everything that you say, over analyzing what the person's body language is, what are they doing, what are they thinking of you, over analyzing everything from a place of insecurity. Let's say that you get this alarming physiological effect of an increased heart rate and kind of like panicky sensations. Maybe your mind becomes cluttered and you don't know what to do with your hands. If you're just scared of social situations, then you have social anxiety. And this can be it's a spectrum. It can rather come from like social phobia, where it becomes even hard to leave your room because you're so concerned about running into someone. Or it could just be mild social anxiety, like you feel a slight discomfort and disconnection when you sit when you sit across someone that you know. A common feeling is like people feel dissociated. They have this conversation, and when someone's looking at them, they feel somewhat abstracted up in their head, somewhere between their eyes, ruminating in like thoughts of wondering what this person's thinking of them, or how am I standing, how am I looking, and you're not actually present in the conversation. I used to find it when I had massive social anxiety that I would live like somewhere up here and my body wouldn't really feel like it existed. I didn't feel like I existed in the world. I was just stuck in a rumination of thoughts. But all of this is this feeling of dissociation and this feeling of social anxiety that can ruin your life if it doesn't get resolved, if you don't like dive into it and take a love and curiosity towards trying to understand where it's coming from. Then it is something that can perpetuate and compound over your life, and it can stop you from taking opportunities. It can stop you from having relationships with people, and it can stop you from like really like idealizing and kind of progressing towards what your true potential is. It's something that can actually ruin your life. And this comes from a place of me having social anxiety. It got to the point where I was on the verge of social phobia, where I didn't want to leave my room because I was so obsessed with this idea of I'm not good enough, people don't like me, what about if I run into someone? Every time I had a conversation, my heart rate would be like increase, my breath would be like panting. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I usually had to like run off and go somewhere else. And then I was so ashamed of this. I was so ashamed of who I was. I would sit there on social media and I'd scroll through popular people's Instagram, or who I deemed popular. I'd scroll through their Instagrams and go, I wish I was them. I wish I was like them. I wish I could just be part of the popular group. And I lived in this state of mind for like 2-3 years, and it just made me more seclusive, more depressive, and eventually it can lead to being on the verge of suicidal, or just very depressed and very anxious, and it can stifle every part of your life. So if this is you and you're like this right now, I want you to know that it's okay. Like, social anxiety is a thing that you're dealing with right now, and labeling it and just admitting to yourself that you have social anxiety is the first step towards overcoming this. And it's completely fine. Like, we all go through things we all go through things like this. We all sorry guys, I'm just going to open up my notes quick so I know what I'm talking about in this video. We all go through stages of not feeling as confident in ourselves, and maybe reverting back to old patterns of behaviors, or just not feeling like life's going our way, or we're not confident in ourselves. And life is a process. It works in seasonality, and this part of your life, this is what you're dealing with right now, and this doesn't define you. You aren't social anxiety the core of who you are. There's not like a factory label on you when you was born saying you have social anxiety. It's kind of a learned, adopted behavior. Social anxiety itself is an evolutionary process. It's been evolved through millions of years to help us effectively communicate in bands and tribes of people. But the idea of this version of you, which is now can't even speak to people, always getting anxious in simple conversations, this is a learned process that has been perpetuated over years and years and years. And what is learned can be unlearned. So just the first part of social anxiety is just a real acceptance and the label of, wow, I have social anxiety, that's fine. And it's this acceptance, it's this willingness to just sit in the social anxiety that will make you free. And a lot of people that have social anxiety, they get in this shame-based container of that. They refuse to admit that they have social anxiety. They're so embarrassed by it. They're so embarrassed by the fact that they can't go out and socialize that they create a shame-based response. and they neglect it. They just push it off to the side. It's like, I don't have social anxiety, or everyone's going to think I'm weird if I have social anxiety. And the shame created around social anxiety suppresses it and makes it worse, because whatever gets repressed gets attached to and gets concretized, and then it becomes worse. It comes out in your behaviors and your patterns of behavior and the way your mental health fluctuates. So the number one step is just like, wow, I have social anxiety. And it's not in a shame way. It's, I have social anxiety. It's like, wow, I have social anxiety. That's fine. I am not. Like, there's an easy thing you can go, I am I'm socially anxious all the time, or I have social anxiety. Social anxiety is something that I've acquired over my life, and it's something that I'm going to have to unlearn. So, what is social anxiety? Where does it even come from? Why is this something that you are struggling to talk with people? What has been the process of evolution that has evolved into you being someone who can't have a simple conversation with someone, who can't look at someone in the eyes? And we first got to understand it from an evolutionary perspective, whereas like social anxiety has been evolved in humans over millions of years to help us communicate effectively with people. Like when we was living in tribes of 100 to 150 people, we had really tight-knit social groups, and we needed to learn how to manage these social groups effectively, because they would result in us getting access to more mates or getting access to food and resources. Say, for example, if your social group didn't like you when you was a hunter-gatherer, they could quite easily kill you or shun you and throw you out the group, and then you're left for dead. You don't have any food. As a human, you're quite useless out in the wild on your own. It's only humans only evolve and grow because we work in tribes together. So social anxiety was evolved as our mind and as our evolution started understanding the purpose of social connections. So it evolved in a way to help us determine how to act and how to change our behavior in certain social situations. So social anxiety is actually a helpful tool. It's been evolved to help us survive. It's been evolved to adapt your behaviors to get others to like you, to help you fit into a group. So when you come from this place of realizing that you're not inherently flawed, you're not broken for having social anxiety, it's actually a thing that's trying to help you. We've just learned adaptations and behaviors which have like spinned it in a wrong light. So social anxiety is actually trying to help you. It's trying to make you safe. And it's your perception and your experience of what is happening that is creating the suffering. Social anxiety is actually trying to help you. And when you have this shift of this understanding of this social anxiety is trying to help me, and it's trying to give me a container of safety and protection, instead of it's making my life worse, it's trying to like destroy me, then you come at it with a loving compassion and a curiosity, and that's going to dissolve the barriers away of social anxiety. It's going to help alleviate the symptoms of the suffering. With compassion and love comes self-acceptance, and through that self-acceptance you unravel the barriers of the ego, you unravel the barriers of the social anxiety. But so just keep that in mind, that it's got its purpose. And whilst this purpose isn't being used correctly right now, we've learned and adapted behaviors that are causing and making social anxiety cause us suffering. This doesn't have to be the case. What is learned can be unlearned. And so let's go through the process of how we can unlearn that. But I also want to understand, like, and just get into the physiological effects of social anxiety. Like, what does it actually feel like? And when you get into the social situation, you will feel it as like a dissociation. It feels like as you see someone, you can kind of catch people out of your peripheral vision. I remember when I used to have social anxiety and I would see someone like walking down the street, or I worked in a supermarket and I'd see someone I knew walk around the corner. It's like my mind's eye, my peripheral vision would pick it up before I knew. And I could feel like this tenseness, like it's literally like a tense body. Your body tenses up and like your heart rate starts to increase. And you'll notice as that happens, you move from the center of your body up into your head, and your thoughts start ruminating. Your thoughts start moving at 1,000 miles per hour. And you become trapped in that rumination of thoughts, and you become dissociated away from your body. You'll find that your heart rate starts to increase, your mind starts to like pick up by thousands, like you might get sweaty palms and like brain fog. And these are the physiological sensations, and it's your body going into a fight or flight response. So what happens is your mind has now put so much importance on that social situation, on what that person's perception of you might be, that it's elicited the response of your fight or flight of your fight or flight system. So now your body really believes and your mind believes that that person equates to danger, because you've made it out and you've rationalized it in your head so much that social situations are dangerous, that they are life or death, that they're such this dramatic thing that your body has started to believe that now. So the fight or flight response start kicking in. Your body tenses up. Your muscles start to tense up. The blood starts to like rush to the muscle groups to get ready to flee or fight. You get increased cortisol and adrenaline, and it's all stress within your body, and this brings your consciousness away from being present, and it gets you in the state of mind to ready to like run or fight. And that fight or flight response is stressful on the body. It creates stress, and that's why social anxiety feels so stressful, because it is actually the eliciting the response of the fight or flight. And so the next step then would be to understand this in a theoretical point of view. I think it really does help to understand that like social anxiety is a process that happens physiologically, but it also happens in the mind. And when you start understanding the theoretical understanding of it and how the mind actually works and how the body actually works, it takes away a lot of the pressure. It really does. It makes social anxiety feel more real than something that you've just like inherently been broken with, because you're not. It's a process that happens in the body and within the mind. So let's next go into where does social anxiety actually come from. So this we understand from an evolutionary purpose of social anxiety is born from a point of wanting to survive. We understand that it has these physiological effects of like this fight or flight response. But why have we now perceived other people as creating this life or death response in our body? Why do we feel like the world is caving in when we have a simple social situation? Where is that coming from? Where is the birth of that idea and the birth of that identity? Where is that? Where did that start? And I think everything always starts. Let me just get a drink. As you're doing these long topics, you can feel your like throat kind of drying out, so it's important to hydrate. Everything always starts from a lack of attention and acceptance as we're growing up as a child. So there's been some point in our process of being a baby to who we are now, in that long continuation of consciousness that is and our identity has evolved. There's been parts of our life, or there has been a theme of our life where we didn't feel like we were safe growing up, that we didn't feel like who we are as a person was good enough. So it can start from not getting enough love or attention from your parents. It might be that when you was growing up and like your mum is the container for for you as a person. When you're growing up, you don't have this ability to conceptualize ideas around this person's looking after me. You just have these pure feelings, and maybe if you don't get mirrored back the fact that you are okay as you are, like you didn't get love and acceptance from your parents or your society or your caregivers, then you've internalized ideas around the fact that you're not lovable, who you are is not good enough. And then you have a fear from this because you don't feel like you're good enough. You feel like you're not going to fit in. You're going to be annihilated. You're not going. Is that evolutionary purpose again? You're not getting mirrored to the fact that you're going to be okay. So you create fear responses around that. And because no one's ever looked at you and actually noted to you and made you feel like you are accepted and you exist as you are, you feel that. You feel like, yeah, I don't feel safe in my body. And that has evolved through your life and has grown into the identity of you now having social anxiety. So it comes from deep in your past. You haven't felt safe in your past. You didn't feel safe in your environment. And now you've created ideas and narratives around the idea of I need to act like this, or people don't like me. And you've created narratives around people being scary or being dangerous because you'd never felt the loving container that you should have grown up. And so it really does all start with the fact that we just need to we need to feel like we're seen, or need to feel like we're accepted and we're okay as who we are. And people who have social anxiety, that they're so ashamed of who they are that they don't want people to look at them in social situations. They don't want you to see the real you, because that alarming sense of seeing the real you creates this feeling of like, it's shame, of I'm not good enough, or they're going to see the real me. I'm scared of people seeing the real me. That's because no one ever looked at you growing up like saying that you was okay being you. And so you need to find that. You need to find people, or you need to have this relationship with yourself where you can be like the maternal, and you can rather be the feminine and masculine energy for yourself, and you can sit there and get to a state where you can accept yourself and you can have self-acceptance, and then you can bring in the masculine and have self-protection and understands that, and you can be the parent that you didn't have when you was growing up for yourself. And this is a process of everyone's development, is being their own parent. It's like humans are inherently flawed. We're not inherently flawed, but we develop flaws throughout our life, and no mum or dad can replicate the eternal maternal or fatherly figure. Like the masculine and feminine energy can never be replicated perfectly from humans, because we're humans that grow up with parents that struggle with their things, with their parents struggle with their things, and that compounds and grows over generations. And to feel truly seen and to feel truly heard, we need to sit in that feminine energy for ourselves and hold a safe container to actually feel like we exist. And then after we've held the container for ourselves, that's when we can bring in the masculine energy of trying to fix our problems and protect ourselves. So whatever you didn't get from your parents or your caretakers or the society that you live in, you need to learn to adopt that for yourself. And that's going to make you feel safe and feel heard. So understanding that social anxiety is born from that place of you didn't get the acceptance, you didn't feel seen for who you actually are. And now you've created adaptations and responses that protect who you actually are, because you don't feel like people are going to accept you, and you don't feel like you're going to fit in. And now there's a fear of people having social situations because people are going to pierce into the true you and actually see how vulnerable you are and see how actually you don't fit in and you're not accepted. These are all ideas in your mind now that when people look at you, they're going to see the real you. So you create personas and narratives around who you actually are. And the funny thing is, once you create them personas, you have these barriers of, I act like this in social situations, I don't want people to see the real me. You've got to perform. You've got to create a false sense of who you actually are. And when you live out this false sense, it feels so inauthentic that it creates anxiety, because you're constantly performing, because you're constantly trying to be someone to avoid people from seeing you. You act out in ways like you're performing. It's like when someone goes and performs and plays a character, there's anxiety there because they got to remember their words, they got to remember the mannerisms of the character, they got to remember how the body language of it. And when you're in social situations, when you're scared for people to see the real you, you have to do the same. You have to play out a character. It's a performance. And with the performance comes the analyzation of, am I performing right? Is this person seeing the real me, or is he seeing the me I want to project? And that creates anxiety. That's where the anxiety comes from. It's the performance of trying to hide yourself. And so we need to dissolve these personas, we need to dissolve these performances and try and open up enough so we can let people see us for who we actually are. That's the key work. So I think I've gone into where social anxiety comes through enough, and I think now we should probably go into the steps I would actually give, like the practical steps of how to develop an understanding of your social anxiety, how to hold the container for yourself for actually feeling like you exist, and how to actually start moving from being socially anxious into social fluidity and social confidence. And the number one step I would say for anyone, and any problem that you have in life, needs to start with awareness. There is no solution without awareness. It just doesn't exist, because how can you solve a problem that you're not aware of? So this is when I first said the video, like, you need to accept your social anxiety and become aware of the fact that you do have social anxiety and be able to admit it to yourself. That is true awareness of how you realize that social anxiety is holding you back, and these are ways that you act and behave in situations. That acceptance builds awareness. And with awareness becomes an opening up into understanding the anxiety. But if you're repressing the anxiety, if you're not aware that you even have it or to what extent it is affecting you, then you're never going to be able to move through it. So how we build awareness is, first, I want you to, if you are experiencing social anxiety and you're watching this video, just admit to yourself, it's like, I do experience the symptoms of social anxiety. I have social anxiety. Like, it's something I experience. This is something that I'm dealing with right now. And just admit it to yourself. And it's like, right, I don't know what to do right now. I need help. And that acceptance and that surrender is is letting go of the idea that you're ashamed of the social anxiety. It's the shame that's keeping you stuck right now. You need to just sit there and admit the fact. It's like, all right, I have social anxiety. I have it. And once you wear that realization of, wow, this is something I have, it takes courage and acceptance. But now you're getting ready to take the burden and to move forward. But it all starts with admitting to the fact that you do have social anxiety. And once you can do this, once you can really accept the fact that, right, this is something I'm dealing with and I have social anxiety and it is maybe holding me back in life, then we can start understanding and building deeper awareness into where does the social anxiety actually come from? What situations create social anxiety? What sort of people elicit the response of social anxiety? And what does social anxiety actually feel like? And then you can get down to the context of social anxiety, but you first need to admit that you have social anxiety. So the next thing I would do is I would get a journal, or I would get your notes on your phone app. So I used to do this a lot. I used to always go on the notes on my phone app. And anytime social anxiety comes up, whether it is before a social situation or straight after a social situation, or even if it just arises in your mind through your thought process of thinking about a social situation, get the notes app on your phone or get a little journal and write down what trigger caused the social anxiety. Where was you when the social anxiety happened? Who was you speaking to? What sort of context with it? Get really detailed into what is eliciting the response of social anxiety, because this is going to give you your first understanding of where it's actually coming from and what's actually bringing the emergence of social anxiety into consciousness. So start becoming aware of it. Like, write down, oh, when I speak to this person in the gym, I notice that I get extreme social anxiety, or the thought of seeing this person, and write down the exact person. Get really detailed. It's like the thought of seeing this person gives me social anxiety. Every time I walk into a room and I feel this like spotlight effect of everyone staring at me, everyone's analyzing everything I'm doing. Write that down. Write all these things down, because they're going to give you your first understanding of how your mind is perceiving things and how your body is feeling, if it's feeling safe or unsafe in what situations. And that is all at the core of that. It's building awareness of where the social anxiety is arising from. And just build up a list of the situations, the circumstances, the people. And this is going to really help with understanding where the social anxiety is coming from. The next part, I want you to follow the trail of where this social anxiety is coming from. So once you've got a list of people, circumstances, and situations, that places, wherever that may be, that give you social anxiety, I want you to follow the trail of why you think these give you social anxiety. So, for example, let's say if you go to the gym and you always see a gym partner in there, or you always see this girl you fancy, and every time you speak to that person, you get this extreme dissociated feeling of social anxiety. Start writing down the thoughts that are coming into your mind as you think about that situation, or the thoughts that arise in your mind when you was in the situation. And what this will be automatic negative thoughts that are sprouting out from a belief about you having social anxiety. So the first part of curing social anxiety is understanding the cognitive side of your thoughts and your beliefs. And so this is how you do it. You try and remember or try and abstract all the thoughts that are coming into your mind that are rather shaping your perception into thinking you're socially anxious, or thoughts about other people and that are creating social anxiety. Write all the thoughts down. And it might be like, every time I speak to this person, I get social anxiety because I think she thinks I'm weird, or they know I'm anxious, or yeah, this person doesn't think I'm as good, or they bullied me in school, so it creates social anxiety. And start getting a list of the thoughts that are coming up when you have social anxiety. And once you start creating lists, and once you start knowing what thoughts are coming up, follow the trail of them thoughts, because these are automatic negative thoughts sprouting from beliefs. You can follow the thoughts right down to the belief, and the belief that is the thing that's shaping them thoughts. The thoughts are just sprouting off the belief, but if you can get to the core of the belief, you can get rid of the thoughts. And this is the basics of cognitive behavioral therapy. So it might be, this person thinks I'm weird, and then ask yourself, like, kind of abstract yourself away from your thoughts and start asking your thoughts questions. Why do you think this person thinks you're weird? Is this person really judging you? Why do you get social anxiety in this situation? And start questioning yourself and come from, like, as I said before, the feminine point of view, like with self-acceptance and self-compassion and a loving curiosity. Be like curious about the fact of, why do you think this person thinks you're weird? Why do you get social anxiety around this person? Why are you putting importance on the judgment of this person? And can you see how when I'm asking them questions, I'm speaking softly. I'm trying to come from a place of curiosity. I'm not self-examining and self-analyzing and criticizing as you do when you come out of a social situation of, oh, why did that person give you social anxiety? There's a different frame. There's a different intention that you can give to your own social anxiety. So come from a place of compassion, come from a place of love, and question it. And follow the trail of the thoughts. And eventually you'll get to a similar sort of answer every time you follow the trails of thoughts. And it might be beliefs that I'm inherently lovable, I'm unlovable, I'm inherently flawed, I'm really weird, I don't fit in. And these will be beliefs that you hold about yourself. And once you start becoming aware of the thoughts and the beliefs that are constantly replaying in your mind, the awareness allows you to realize that they aren't fundamental truths. You haven't got a manufactured label on you that says you're unlovable or you don't fit in. That is just something that you've adopted, you've attached to your identity as you've gone through life. And it's a learned behavior, it's a learned adaptation. But what is learned, as I said before, can be unlearned. And once you realize that the beliefs you hold about yourself and the thoughts aren't actually based in fundamental truths, they're not baked into the nature of reality, there's something that you fabricated in your own mind, it takes away the importance of them and it gives you a level of detachment. It allows you to pull yourself away from the beliefs and away from the thoughts. And with a level of detachment, with that snap realization that, wow, this isn't the truth, becomes freedom. And then you get a chance to kind of place new thoughts and new beliefs with a self-loving and self-compassion, and a more truthful perspective. Like, you're not inherently an anxious person, you just act anxious around people. And so when you can understand that you aren't weird, you're not flawed, you're not unlovable, and you actually understand that you are lovable, and because people around you love you, and you fit in with certain people, and you have certain friends, and you start actually analysing your life from a rational perspective, then you can bring more self-compassionate beliefs in. And the more you do this, the more you train the habit of your brain to bring up the positive thoughts, to bring up the more self-compassionate thoughts, the self-affirming thoughts. And it's just a habit, because you've constantly attached to this inner critic which thinks it can't socialize and is anxious. That has become an habitual process in your mind. But the more you can learn to deprogram the habit of attaching to all the negative, untruthful beliefs, and you can start instilling more truthful beliefs, then the more that's going to become a habitual process, and you're going to start to perceive the world in a way that is more truthful and compassionate, and one that serves you instead of actually destroys you. And that is the basics of cognitive behavioral therapy. And it is very important to start with the cognition, because the cognition can make it very hard to actually feel where social anxiety comes from if you don't quiet down the cognitive part of your mind. It kind of goes into override, and the inner critic goes so crazy that it's impossible to actually get to the core of where social anxiety came from. So the first step is to understand the core beliefs that are holding you back and deal with the cognitive side of your mind. Another part of dealing with the cognitions is trying to test the beliefs into reality. So say if you get to a belief that I am socially anxious, I just can't socialize with people, people don't like me, and these are beliefs that you think are inherently yours. Start testing them out in reality. Start actually going out into the world and set yourself many challenges of speaking to people. And this is where exposure therapy comes into play. Go out and have a conversation with someone. Maybe if it's like, it makes you really anxious, but you go to the checkout lady and just say, hello, how are you? Are you having a nice day? What's your plans for the rest of the day? What time do you finish work? Just ask inquisitive questions and be curious, and see if you can try and get a conversation going. And even if it doesn't go well, at least you spoke to that cashier, because most people don't speak to the cashier. And just try and go out and make an impact on people's days, and try and have mini conversations throughout the day, and set yourself challenges to progressively try and do this and to get progressively further on with conversations. and it's slowly going to expose you into social situations. And this is going to do two things. It's going to disprove the beliefs that you hold about yourself, that you can't socialize and that no one likes you, because you're going to get responses from people out in the world that actually appreciate the fact that you tried to speak to them, or you're going to get responses where on the odd occasion you do actually have a good conversation. And it's also going to desensitize you to rejection, and the fear of rejection is what's sitting at the core of your social anxiety, that fear of judgment. And when you realize that, wow, me actually having social anxiety to this random person that I'm never going to see again doesn't really matter, it desensitizes you away from the fear of being rejected. So it's also is disproving the beliefs, but also desensitizing you at the same time. So incorporate exposure therapy into the cognitive behavioral therapy work, and this is going to really help on the cognitive side of understanding social anxiety. Another tip that I can give you to like become aware of the thoughts and to help you actually deal with the exposure therapy, and something that's going to help you like actually sit into your social anxiety more and feel what you need to feel, is meditation. So the whole art of meditation, and this can get overcomplicated, but I'm going to try and keep it really simple because I'm not making this a meditation video. If you're interested in that, I've got probably tens of 20 or 30s or hundreds of podcasts that mention meditation. I could do one in a deeper spiritual and psychological sense if you want. But the whole point of meditation in this work, of how it's going to help alleviate the symptoms of social anxiety, is it's going to give you that gap between stimulus and response. So when you have social anxiety, right, and you see someone in front of you, it's going to elicit the physiological sensations of social anxiety, and it's going to be easy to give into the fight or flight response of, I need to get out of the situation, people don't like me, and the incessant thoughts that like emerge up into your mind when the social anxiety arises is going to overtake your being if you don't have this ability to detach yourself away from it. So what meditation does is it allows you to bridge the gap between stimulus and response. Stimulus being the person, response being how you choose to respond, whether that's run away or act socially anxious or to accept what's happening right now. The response is the important part, and there's a gap between stimulus and response. And when you haven't practiced meditation, when you're not mindful, this gap can be so small that there is really no gap. It's just stimulus response. But when you increase the gap by becoming increasingly more mindful, the gap becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and you actually get an ability to sit and observe what's happening in your body, in your mind, and you can choose differently, you can act differently. The best way I can describe this is, when I get social anxiety, or when I used to get social anxiety and I would see someone, it used to be straight away I would rather try and run away from the situation, or I would straight away become anxious, I'd become afraid, and then I'll start acting really anxiously weird. I used to hate it. Like my hands would be in and out of my pockets. I'd have all this energy. I'd be moving all the time. Like I'd be like stuttering over my words. But once I started meditating, especially once I was about 3 to 6 months in, I found this ability to notice when social anxiety was happening. So like out of the peripheral of my vision, I would catch someone, social anxiety would start happening. And there was this feeling that emerged that allowed me to notice what was happening, notice that social anxiety was happening. Instead of like acting out and manifesting my social anxiety into the world and becoming my social anxiety, this process and this like ability developed to actually be able to notice that social anxiety was coming up. And when that happened, when I noticed that social anxiety came up, I got a level of detachment away from it and I could accept it. And when you can accept things for what they are, you can let them play their natural course. The whole goal of meditation is like everything is flux, everything is changing from our emotional state to the nature of reality. Like even if you look at an atom, it's always changing, it's always vibrating. Emotions change and vibrate. Everything's always changing and vibrating. We think things are concrete and still, but that's just the ill perception of our like cognitive ability from the left hemisphere. When you actually look at reality for what it is, and quantum physics kind of explains this, like everything's in flux, everything's changing all the time. So the feelings of social anxiety naturally want to play their course of coming up, being socially anxious, and come out. But what prevents it from happening and going is our attachment to the idea that we are socially anxious. And when we attach to the social anxiety and try and suppress it, it concretizes that energy. It gives it more energy to feed on. But when you can sit back and watch the social anxiety, you let it come and then you let it go. And it's that letting the anxiety dissipate through that ability to be mindful that allows you to act differently and respond differently. And so it can be like you see someone and you're doing this challenge where you're trying to expose yourself to more social situations, and you're going up to the cashier and you're about to back out, like speaking to them, but you have this moment of mindfulness where it's like, I understand I'm socially anxious right now. I feel socially anxious. I'm going to go and ask the cashier how they are anyway. Or I'm going to speak to that person. Or when you're in a conversation with someone, you're like, it's kind of like you sit back and watch yourself be socially anxious. It's really funny. And you're like, wow, my heart rate is increasing here. My brain fog's increasing. I'm really anxious. And that moment of noting, that moment of acceptance really alleviates the symptoms, and it really helps. And meditation does a lot more to actually like getting it to the piercing through the veils of the emotional trauma that has been caused from social anxiety. Like when you get in deep meditative states, you can really feel what your body's been holding on to, but that's maybe for a different video. I don't necessarily want to talk about that too much now. So the meditation's also going to help you become aware of the thoughts that are emerging up into your mind. When you can sit there and you can just sit on the mat for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or sit on your floor, sit in your bed and just like meditate. Focus on the anchor of the breath, in and out, in and out. You're going to notice the socially anxious thoughts start coming up into your mind. And that 10 minutes, 15 minutes that you train, you start becoming aware of the social anxiety that's when you meditate. You can start becoming aware of the social anxiety that's arising in your meditation. But the continual practice of meditation is going to bring that mindfulness into your daily life, and it will punctuate through your daily life. So meditation's so important. And I said I wasn't going to talk about it loads, but I just probably waffled on for about 5-10 minutes there. Next, we want to start going deeper. So once we start like shrinking the inner critic and we start becoming aware of what thoughts emerge and what beliefs emerge from our social anxiety, we want to try and get deeper into where is social anxiety coming from, or how is it emerging into our body. And what I like to think of as thought, I feel like thoughts emerge from our body, right? And our body holds on to like sensations and emotions and feelings. If you've read the famous trauma book, Body Keeps a Score, we understand the energy that comes from trauma, the energy that comes from all of our life experiences gets stored in our body, and it gets stored as like perceptions or thoughts, and you can feel it as a heaviness in your shoulder, or like a postural change, or you can feel it as an increased heart rate, for example. Like when you get into social situations, you might get an increased heart rate. That is kept in your body, and it's called somatic inquiry. It's your ability to feel where the social anxiety is in your body. And you can start doing this by like becoming aware of what's happening to your body. Like once you start deconstructing the thoughts and the beliefs, and you feel like you're actually getting a little bit better at social situations, go into the social situations and try and identify how exactly it feels and what are the sensations, not what are the thoughts. And I get a bit jittery in this. Where do you get jittery? Where does the social anxiety emerge from? Where do you hold on to it in your body? For me, for example, as I've said, it was an increased heart rate. I used to get sweatiness in my palms. I used to get like a brain fog feeling. I used to get this dissociated feeling that my consciousness would rise up to the top of my head, where it'd be away from my body. My body would kind of feel hollow and it was acting out on its own. And through feeling that, I could really like anchor myself and remind myself that I actually exist in my body. And once I was in a conversation, I started feeling the heartbeat, and I was like, wow, my heartbeat's racing at 1,000 miles per hour, but I felt it. It would then allow it to play its natural course, and the energy would come in and out of me instead of getting suppressed and pushed back into my heart or back into the body part where the anxiety was. It would allow it to emerge out of me and get pushed out. And through somatic inquiry, and you can do this through meditation as well. You can do this away from social situations. Sit there and just feel like, now close your eyes and envision yourself in a social situation. Envision someone that gives you social anxiety. And feel, where does this start to emerge in your body? Like, what body part are you starting to feel change? Are you starting to feel your head drop a little bit and your shoulders become heavy? Are you feeling your heart rate start to increase? Are you feeling the locus of consciousness is rising up into your mind instead of your body? Like, really interesting. What does the physiological feelings feel like? And our experiences through all of our past childhood trauma and everything that's ever happened to us it gets stored in our body. The energy from that experience gets stored in our body, and then the thoughts and beliefs and perceptions kind of emerge out of the bodily sensations. So I really want you to tap into the bodily sensations, and once you feel them, once you have the ability to actually experience what it feels like in your body, you will let thoughts and emotions and beliefs and perceptions emerge out of you, and they can get pushed out. Energy can get released instead of being stored within you. Social anxiety is just this really intense energy that's being stored within you, but you can let it get released by feeling it, having this willingness to become aware of it. It's awareness again. Awareness is at the core of all this. Acceptance. Accept what is happening in your body, and you will find the social anxiety leave you. Next is that feeling of dissociation. So this is very common, and you might not actually know this is happening to you yet, but as you get more into the somatic, as you pull yourself more into the soma, understanding where it is in your body you're feeling the social anxiety, you'll understand that you really do get this dissociated feeling of being up in your head somewhere. And it's so important to try and bring yourself back into your body, because when you emerge your consciousness away from your body up into your head, that's when you get stuck in the thought loops. That's when you get stuck in this incessant narrative of I'm anxious, I'm afraid, this person's thinking of me, and the abstractions and the perceptions come from all this like craziness that's going on in your head. But when you can really sit there and like bring yourself back into your body and stop being as dissociated and come back to where your feet are, you're going to feel the sensations more. And by feeling the sensations, you're going to allow them to play their natural course. Remember, sensations, they want to come and go. But when you refuse to feel them, you give them energy because you attach to them. You attach to something that suppresses them. So coming into your body allows things to be felt. And it's going to make the trauma that is held in your body, it's going to dissipate that, but it's also going to make the situation that you find yourself in easier, because the social anxiety is going to arise and go. And for me now in social situations, because I've got naturally quite good at this, when it does arise, and like it rarely rises now because I've spent so long doing this sort of stuff, but when it does finally arise, I watch it. I feel what it's like. I feel my mind getting messier. I feel my consciousness trying to come up here somewhere to get away from the body because the body's uncomfortable. And I bring myself back into my body. I feel my heartbeat. I feel how my hands want to start moving, the sweatiness of my palms. And as I feel them, it's like my consciousness emerges, like it transcends back into my body, and I feel like I'm actually there, and I feel more present, and then the social anxiety comes and it goes. And this can happen in a microsecond for me. Like I can see someone, the social anxiety can arise, and within literally a second or 2 seconds, I can feel my consciousness and my awareness come up here to get noisy, and I can go, social anxiety is arising. As I'm speaking to someone, I can literally go, social anxiety, accept it, and come back into my body, and then I can act from a place of authenticity because I'm no longer controlled by the social anxiety. And so, like, especially trauma work and shadow work, if you've ever read like Carl Jung, or I'd really recommend you go down that path, but this is for later on development. This can really help. This can really help with all this sort of stuff, with dissociation, with like the somatic inquiry. But yeah, look into like trauma and shadow work, because that can be real stuff that it requires a lot of focus and attention, and maybe working with someone who can help you through this sort of stuff. But that is the stuff that can help unravel the deep psychological sense of being abandoned that might be causing social anxiety. The next thing I want to give is like a nice little tip that is really helpful, and I find it makes it takes a bit of the pressure off the social situations. So when you know you're going into a social situation, you can feel social anxiety arising, or say if it does happen in like a spontaneous way where you like come across someone, I want you to, in your mind, remind yourself that you want to perceive this situation differently. So the reason you're creating that, one of the reasons that's one of the things that's happening now, because you're in this social situation, is you have perceived that the other person is judging you. There's an intention that you need to impress this other person, or you need to come across in a certain way. The intention behind this social situation is you trying to impress the other person or not come across anxious. So if you can get a moment of mindfulness before the situation, or before you go into this social situation, and just go, I'm going to change my intention and put the importance on them. I'm going to try and find out about their life. I'm going to be curious about who they are. I think if you come into conversations with this intention of curiosity, it allows you to put the importance off you and the attention off you onto the other person. And instead of like trying to think, oh, I need to talk about myself, I need to prove this to this person, I need to talk about this, I need the conversation to keep going, just come in with the intention of a nice slow pace of, I'm going to ask this person how their day was. I'm going to be curious about what's going on in their life. I want to find out about them. And that curiosity, that simple intention of having that curiosity about the other person can really help alleviate the symptoms and the stress of you having to perform, because it's no longer about you acting in a certain way. It's about you trying to find out about the other person. And then you'll naturally find out, because you want to find out about the other person, because you set the intention of trying to find out how this person's feeling, how this person's life is going. You have loads of questions come to your mind. You find conversation easier, because now it's about finding out about the other person, not so much about you trying to impress this person. And as you then slowly get into the conversation, you'll feel more comfortable, and then as the conversation naturally unfolds, you'll start talking about yourself more, because you're now not as afraid as you was before. For me, it's always the initial start of social anxiety that's worked, the social situation. It's always the seeing the person, and the mind goes into overdrive. Once you settle down and once you're in a conversation and you've actually stayed there and the conversation starts flowing, it's not as hard. So a good way to actually like get the conversation initiated and to like actually get the conversation flowing is to ask them questions about their life, get them talking about themselves. Like, people love talking about their own experience. People want to talk about their own life. They are the most important persons in their own minds, and they would love to like vent about their own life. They'd love to have a discussion about things that are going on in their own life. So if you come from a place of curiosity about them, you then take the pressure off you, and you actually make the other person feel better and more comfortable. You don't want to do this by barraging them with questions or like, what are you doing? What's this? What's that? Just do it as like, oh, how was your day, mate? Oh, that's cool. Yeah. What are you doing later on today? How's work been? Oh, what are you doing for work now? That's interesting. Oh, God, I'd love to do something like that. Like, what inspires you to get into that, mate? That's interesting. Like, I don't know, just something like that. Like, ask questions and actually like come from a place of curiosity. It's like, this is a human being that lives this conscious life. Like, I watch everything that happens in my life, and this person lives this other completely different life, who experiences emotions and feelings that I don't experience, and I want to know what I can learn from their experience or how their experience is going. It's cool. Humans are interesting, so just come from that place of curiosity, and it takes away that intention of them being scary and you trying to impress them, to that loving curiosity. The last bit I want to get into with social anxiety is exercise, diet, and sleep, and looking after the biology and the physiology of who you are. It's so important to be healthy. It's so important to sleep properly. It's so important to exercise. If you haven't got the foundation of being healthy, if you haven't got the foundation of exercise, if you haven't got the foundation of a clean diet, if you haven't got the foundation of good optimal sleep, then it's going to perpetuate and make the physiological sensations of anxiety so much worse. And I think we should start with exercise, because this is the easiest lever to pull, right? Think of when I was talking about social anxiety before, how much like excess energy it feels like when you're in a social situation. And it's not, as you say, it's not good energy. It's like nervous energy. But regardless, as energy that's coming into your body. If you can exercise, if you can get yourself out for a run every day, if you can go to the gym and lift weights twice a week, 3 times a week, if you can go and do a sport you like and go and move your body, it's not only going to find a way to help release the excessive energy that's sitting within your body, it's also going to help you come in contact with your body more. That dissociated feeling I was talking about of people with social anxiety living up here, when you do things that move your body, it brings your consciousness and transcends it back into the body again. It brings it back into where you are, where your feet are planted. So any sort of exercise, like, prioritize it, because it's not only going to reduce cortisol and adrenaline, the stress hormones that get elicited when you have social anxiety. It's not only going to make you create endorphins that make you feel better. It's going to make you look better. It's going to make you feel more energized, which are going to make you more confident, which is going to help with the social anxiety. But it's also going to bring you into your body. So exercise is crucial. And don't overthink this. Don't overthink what exercise should I do for social anxiety. I'd recommend, and I'm a PT by trade, so I can help people with this if you need. I'd recommend just lift weights 1 to 2 times a week. That's all you need to do. Go and do full body splits. and train compound movements and learn how to do it. Start maybe on the machines if you don't know what you're doing, and maybe ask someone for a program. Go and like ask a gym instructor if they can show you around. They can create you a simple basic gym program. Go online and type in at home workouts. Just do some sort of resistance training, something that's going to like build muscle. And through building muscle, you're going to increase your testosterone, your central nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system is going to like become more calm, and you're going to feel better within yourself. Your self-esteem is going to improve because you're going to look better, you're going to get little muscles, and like you'll feel better for yourself, and you're releasing stress through moving your body. Go and do cardio once a week, even if it's just once a week, twice a week. The thought, cardio clears my head so much. It is really therapeutic to go and just go on a long run, or like a 10-minute run, a 15-minute run. This is going to make you feel tons better. So go and do some cardio. Cardio will really help with you feeling better as well. And then go and find a sport where you can like incorporate movement and socializing, because things with sports and the things with going to like a club or something, when you go to certain like clubs to go and socialize, like the whole intention is to socialize, so it puts a lot of importance on it. When you go to a sport, when you go and play football or you go and boxing or whatever, but the whole point is to actually go and do the sport. So the socializing isn't of importance to people. So you can kind of get away with like less good interactions, and you can get more practice by going to clubs, because the intention isn't to build friends. The intention is to go and move your body and do sport. But exercise is crucial, people. There's a reason why they assign walking to cure depression, or they assign just moving your body and exercise to like alleviating the symptoms of anxiety, is because it works. So you can't get away with not exercising. It is of crucial importance. It's so important for you. Next is diet. So if you're eating a lot of junk food, if you're not eating a lot of protein, if you're eating a lot of like excessive carbohydrates, what you're going to be doing is first creating systemic inflammation in your body, which is like, because the food is so unhealthy and because the food is like so intolerant to your body, your mind starts seeing that food as a virus. It starts seeing it as a disease, and it kind of attacks that food, and it makes you feel ill. Your body starts attacking itself from the inside out, and the creation of systemic inflammation within your body creates more stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which make you more anxious. You're promoting more of the hormones from eating a poor diet that make you feel more anxious. So actually, like, eating whole foods, cut out the processed foods, like this can actually diminish your social anxiety by like 60%, 70%. I've had it before where I've had people, and I've recommended it to them, where it's and I've done it with myself, where it actually decreases our anxiety by 60%, 70%, because it works. It works by like just eating cleaner food. You've not got the inflammation in your body. You're another big one is your blood sugar levels. I find people with social anxiety, when they eat loads of carbohydrates, whether that be like cereal or oats in the morning, or whatever it may be, when they eat something that's very high carbohydrate in the morning, what you do is oh my God, I can't actually talk. To be fair, I've done pretty well so far. I'm 53 minutes in, so no wonder I'm starting to like stutter in that. But what happens is, when you spike your blood sugar levels, you get this spike of energy, and then you get this decrease of energy. And a lot of people's anxiety can actually spike up when they get this decrease of blood sugar levels. So eat more like high fat, more high protein foods, which are going to stable your blood sugar levels out, and go and do your own research into how blood sugar levels can actually affect your anxiety. And the last one is sleep. So if you have less sleep, again, it is going to increase the hormones of cortisol and adrenaline. It's going to make you feel more anxious, more depressed. And this is probably the most fundamental one that people miss out on. If you're underslept, no wonder you have social anxiety. No wonder you're experiencing mental health issues. Like, give your biology what it needs to rest. Give your physiology what it needs to rest. Like, ensure that you're sleeping correctly, because I don't think people realize how much the physiological affects their social anxiety. And it's extremely important for you to base yourself in a good foundation of health, because if you don't, you're never going to overcome social anxiety. It all starts with the self-respect of looking after your body first. And since I've been healthy, my anxiety is diminished, alongside all of the work I've done with understanding my mind and understanding my trauma. like being healthy makes me feel so much more present. It makes me feel so much more embodied, and it really gives me a base foundational effect of health and of confidence, and not just the looking good, but feeling energized and not having the stress hormones be like responded in my body all the time. And like, it's so important to have good health. So go and find yourself a PT if you're experiencing with social anxiety. Go and exercise frequently. Speak to an expert. Speak to someone like, no, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but speak to someone like myself who's got experience getting in shape, helping people get in shape. Like, go and reach out to people, because this is going to, it's going to make you feel, it's going to make you feel less anxious. And I think that's everything, people. I think that's everything I've got to say today. That was a long video. Probably didn't plan on it going 55 minutes, but there we are. We're here. I really hope that you follow the steps in this video, because I've done this on purpose. I've designed this process of overcoming social anxiety because it works for me. It works for the people I helped. Like, really go and progress towards overcoming your social anxiety, because like it can be something that holds you back so much. And I don't think I need to talk much more. I've given you enough to digest in that video. If you do have social anxiety, reach out to me. Like, I'm more than happy to help. I can show you through the process of how to start developing an understanding of your social anxiety. I've not got any qualifications. I'm not a defined expert, but I've read I've read hundreds of books. I've really dedicated myself to understanding the mind and understanding the body and how to feel optimized and feel better. And just because I don't have accreditations, it doesn't mean that I'm not knowledgeable or I can't help. So reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help people. And I really just want to make a difference with the stuff I've learned. Once you realize that it does help, like you feel I feel inclined to share it. I feel a purpose to share the stuff that helped me. Like, it would feel wrong if I didn't share this. And like, trust me, on the other side, like, you can feel so much better. So thank you very much for listening, people. Appreciate all your time. Again, check out my socials, Alex Rogers Fit on Instagram, and then go to my YouTube channel, my Spotify. Obviously, the podcast is called The Backpacking Psychonaut. Just go and check it all out and check out the content on there. I'd appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you very much for listening, people. I'll see you on the next episode.